Welcome back to the Buddhism YouTube channel. Today we will continue reading The Sorrowless Flower, written Ngoc Tran Dharma named Thien Phuc, episodes number 12. 170. The Path of Truth. Regarding the path of truth, the sixth patriarch taught in the Platform Sutra as follows. Good knowing advisors, the way must penetrate and flow. How can it be impeded? If the mind does not dwell in dharmas, the way will penetrate and flow. The mind that dwells in dharmas is in self-bondage. To say that sitting unmoving is correct is to be like Sariputra, who sat quietly in the forest but was scolded by the Malakirti. Good knowing advisors, there are those who teach people to sit looking at the mind and contemplating stillness, without moving or arising. They claim that it has merit. Confused men, not understanding, easily become attached and go insane. There are many such people. Therefore, you should know that teaching of this kind is a greater error. 171. Content with few desires and satisfy with what we have at this very moment. Content with few desires. Theoduic means having few desires, Trituic means being content. Knowing how to feel satisfied with few possessions means being content with material conditions that allow us to be healthy and strong enough to practice the way. Knowing how to feel satisfied and being content with material conditions is an effective way to cut through the net of passions and desires, attain a peaceful state of body and mind, and accomplish our supreme goal of cultivation. Being content with few desires means having few desires. Here desires include not only the desire for money and material things, but also the wish for status and fame. It also indicates seeking the love and service of others. In Buddhism, a person who has attained the mental stage of deep faith has very few desires and is indifferent to them. We must note carefully that though such a person is indifferent to worldly desires, he is very eager for the truth, that is, he has a great desire for the truth. To be indifferent to the truth is to be slothful in life. To be content with few desires also means to be satisfied with little material gain, that is, not to feel discontented with one's lot, and to be free from worldly cares. Nevertheless, this does not mean to be unconcerned with self-improvement, but to do one's best in one's work without discontent. Such a person will never be ignored by those around him. But even if people around him ignored him, he would feel quite happy because he lives like a king from a spiritual point of view. We must have few desires in two areas. The desires for food and sex. Food and sex support ignorance in perpetrating all sort of evil. Thus, Confucius taught, food and sex are part of human nature. That is to say, we are born with the craving for food and sex. Why is that we have not been able to demolish our ignorance, eliminate our afflictions, and reveal our wisdom? Because we always crave for food and sex. Sincere Buddhists should always remember that food gives rise to sexual desire, and sexual desire gives rise to ignorance. Once the desire for food arises, the desire for sex arises as well. Men are attracted to beautiful women, and women are charmed by handsome men. People become infatuated and obsessed and cannot see through their desires. The nourishment from the food we eat is transformed into reproductive essence, and once that essence is full, sexual desire arises. Sincere Buddhists should always remember that the less tasty the food is, the better. Food should not be regarded as too important. Sincere Buddhists should practice moderation and eat only enough to sustain ourselves. We should neither eat very rich food, nor eat spoiled food, for either one could ruin our health. To be satisfied with what we have at this very moment means satisfaction or contentment is a characteristic of the really happy individual. The ordinary people seem to think that it is difficult to cultivate and develop contentment. However, with courage and determination to control one's evil inclination, as well as to understand the consequences of these evil thoughts, one can keep the mind from being soiled and experience happiness through contentment. For those who have wisdom, know how to apply themselves and are able to endure life, and are able to think cleverly, will find peace in his fate under whatever circumstances. With the conditions of wealth, one satisfies and is at peace with being wealthy. With the conditions of poverty, one satisfies and is at peace with being impoverished. In fact, in our lifetime, we engage in all kinds of activities, think and calculate every imaginable method without abandoning any plot, so long as it is beneficial, but whether or not our actions affect others we never care. We have been doing all these for what? For a better life, clothes, house, and for storing more money. If we think carefully, we will see that the sun rises, reaches its standstill, and then it will set and disappears in the evening. A full moon will soon become half, quarter, then lose its brightness, mountains become deep canyons, oceans become hills of berries, etc. The way of life has always been rise and fall, success and failure, victory and defeat, lost and found, together and apart, life and death, etc., goes on constantly, and there is absolutely nothing that remain unchanged and eternal. People with wisdom should always satisfy with their current circumstances. The Buddha extols simple living as being more conducive to the development of one's mind. Thus, the Buddha always preaches the self-contentment for the benefit of the bhikkhus as follow. The robes or clothes they receive, whether coarse or fine, alms or food they receive, whether unpalatable or delicious, the abodes or houses they receive, whether simple or luxurious. Those who satisfy with these three conditions can reduce the desires and at the same time develop the habits and values of simple living. Satisfaction or contentment is a characteristic of the really happy individual. The ordinary people seem to think that it is difficult to cultivate and develop contentment. However, with courage and determination to control one's evil inclination, as well as to understand the consequences of these evil thoughts, one can keep the mind from being soiled and experience happiness through contentment. For those who have wisdom, know how to apply themselves and are able to endure life, and are able to think cleverly, will find peace in his fate under whatever circumstances. With the conditions of wealth, one satisfies and is at peace with being wealthy. With the conditions of poverty, one satisfies and is at peace with being impoverished. In fact, in our lifetime, we engage in all kinds of activities, think and calculate every imaginable method without abandoning any plot, so long as it is beneficial, but whether or not our actions affect others we never care. We have been doing all these for what? For a better life, clothes, house, and for storing more money. If we think carefully, we will see that the sun rises, reaches its standstill, and then it will set and disappears in the evening. A full moon will soon become half, quarter, then lose its brightness, mountains become deep canyons, oceans become hills of berries, etc. The way of life has always been rise and fall, success and failure, victory and defeat, lost and found, together and apart, life and death, etc., goes on constantly, and there is absolutely nothing that remain unchanged and eternal. People with wisdom should always satisfy with their current circumstances. The Buddha extols simple living as being more conducive to the development of one's mind. Thus, the Buddha always preaches the self-contentment for the benefit of the bhikkhus as follow. The robes or clothes they receive, whether coarse or fine, alms or food they receive, whether unpalatable or delicious, the abodes or houses they receive, whether simple or luxurious. Those who satisfy with these three conditions can reduce the desires and at the same time develop the habits and values of simple living. Devout Buddhists should always remember that to Buddhism, sensual pleasure are something fleeting, something that comes and goes. Can something be really called happiness when it is here one moment and gone the next? Is it really so enjoyable to go around hunting for something so ephemeral, which is changing all the time? Look at the amount of trouble we have to go through to get all those sensual pleasures which we think will bring us happiness. Some people have such strong desire for pleasure that they will break the law, commit brutal crimes and cause others to suffer, just so they can experience these pleasures. They may not understand how much suffering they themselves will have to endure in the future as a consequence of the unwholesome acts they have committed. Even ordinary people may become aware that a disproportionate amount of suffering is necessary to bring together a few moments of happiness, so much that it really is not worth it. Devout Buddhists should always remember that suffering will always follow craving. All the problems in this world are rooted in the desire for pleasure. It is on account of the need for pleasure that quarrels occur within the family, that neighbors do not get along well, that states have conflict and nations go to war. It is also on account of sense-based pleasures that sufferings, afflictions, and all kinds of problems plague our world, that people have gone beyond their humanness into great cruelty and inhumanity. 172. Unlimited seeking. Zen practitioners should always remember that to cultivate without thoughts of seeking fame and benefit, for they have already eradicated the 5 roots of the hell: wealth, sex, fame, food, and sleep in all circumstances. We should cultivate the way with our own effort. Do not crave fame and profits. We should follow the spirit of the bodhisattvas Manjusri, Samantabhadra, Avalokitesvara, Ksitigarbha, and other bodhisattvas, for they feel that living beings' accomplishments are the same as their own accomplishment. They do not make distinctions between self and others. Bodhisattvas joyfully support the merit and virtue they see and hear others doing. 173. Disadvantages of the sensual pleasures. To Buddhism, sensual pleasure are something fleeting, something that comes and goes. Can something be really called happiness when it is here one moment and gone the next? Is it really so enjoyable to go around hunting for something so ephemeral, which is changing all the time? Look at the amount of trouble we have to go through to get all those sensual pleasures which we think will bring us happiness. Some people have such strong desire for pleasure that they will break the law, commit brutal crimes and cause others to suffer, just so they can experience these pleasures. They may not understand how much suffering they themselves will have to endure in the future as a consequence of the unwholesome acts they have committed. Even ordinary people may become aware that a disproportionate amount of suffering is necessary to bring together a few moments of happiness, so much that it really is not worth it. Devout Buddhists should always remember that suffering will always follow craving. All the problems in this world are rooted in the desire for pleasure. It is on account of the need for pleasure that quarrels occur within the family, that neighbors do not get along well, that states have conflict and nations go to war. It is also on account of sense-based pleasures that sufferings, afflictions, and all kinds of problems plague our world, that people have gone beyond their humanness into great cruelty and inhumanity. 174. Non-seeking. According to the first patriarch Bodhidharma, the 28th patriarch from India and also the first patriarch in China, not to seek after anything is one of the 4 disciplinary processes. By not seeking after anything is meant this: men of the world, in eternal confusion, are attached everywhere to one thing or another, which is called seeking. The wise, however, understand the truth and are not like the vulgar. Their minds abide serenely in the uncreated, while the body turns about in accordance with the laws of causation. All things are empty and there is nothing desirable and to be sought after. Wherever there is nothing merit of brightness, there follows the demerit of darkness. The triple world there one stays too long is like a house on fire. All that has a body suffers, and who would ever know what is rest? Because the wise are thoroughly acquainted with this truth, they get near attached to anything that becomes, their thoughts are quieted, they never seek. Says the sutra. Wherever there is seeking, there you have sufferings, when seeking ceases you are blessed. Thus we know that not to seek is verily the way to the truth. Therefore, one should not seek after anything. Bodhidharma taught about 3 non-seeking practices or 3 doors of liberation. Emptiness, signlessness, or to get rid of the idea of form or externals. There are no objects to be perceived by sense organs, one of the 3 emancipations, and wishlessness, or to get rid of all wishes or desires, until no wish of any kind whatsoever remains in the cultivator's mind, for he no longer needs to strive for anything, one of the 3 emancipations. Truly speaking, worldly phenomena or dharmas are illusory and dreamlike, born and destroyed, destroyed and born. So what is there which is true, everlasting, and worth seeking? Furthermore, worldly phenomena are all relative. In calamities are found blessings, in blessings there is misfortune. Therefore, Buddhist cultivators should always keep their minds calm and undisturbed in all situations, rising or falling, unfortunate or blessed. For example, when a monk cultivates alone in a deserted hut with few visitors, although his living conditions are miserable and lonely, his cultivation is diligent. After a while, virtuous people learn of his situation and come to offer and seek for his guidance. His used-to-be hut now become a huge magnificent temple, filled with monks and nuns. By then, his blessings may be great, his cultivation has not only obviously declined, sometimes external events may attract him to causing more bad karma. Therefore, Buddhist cultivators should always keep in mind these 3 non-seeking practices. According to the 42-section Sutra, Asramana asked the Buddha, what are the causes and conditions by which one come to know past lives, and also by which one's understanding enables one to attain the way? The Buddha said, by purifying the mind and guarding the will, your understanding can attain the way. Just as when you polish a mirror, the dust vanishes and brightness remains, so, too, if you cut off and do not seek desires, you can then know past lives. 175. Seek to learn and practice Dharma. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra, when Zaraputra accompanied Manjusri Bodhisattva to call on Vimalakirti to inquire after his health, Zaraputra saw no seats in the room and thought, where do the Bodhisattvas and chief disciples sit? Vimalakirti knew of Zaraputra's thought and asked him, virtuous one, do you come here for a seat or for the Dharma? Zaraputra replied, I come here for the Dharma and not for a seat. Vimalakirti said, hey Zaraputra, he who searches for the Dharma does not even cling to his body and life, still less to a seat, for the quest of Dharma is not related to the 5 aggregates: form, rupa, sensation, vedana, conception, sanjna, discrimination, samskara, and consciousness, vijnana. To the 18 fields of sense, dhatu. the 6 organs, their objects and their perceptions, to the 12 entrances, ayatana. The 6 organs and 6 sense data that enter for lead to discrimination, and to the worlds of desire, form and beyond form. Sariputta, a seeker of the Dharma, does not cling to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. A seeker of the Dharma does not hold the view of suffering, of cutting off all the accumulated causes thereof, to put an end to it, by treading the path to nirvana, i.e. the 4 noble truths. Why is it so? Because the Dharma is beyond all sophistry. For if one says, because I see suffering, I cut off its accumulated causes to wipe it out by treading the path thereto, this is mere sophistry, and is not the quest of the Dharma. Sariputta, the Dharma is called nirvana, the condition of complete serenity and ultimate extinction of reincarnation. If you give rise to the concept of birth and death, this is a search for birth and death, and is not the quest of Dharma. The Dharma is absolute and immaculate, but if you are defiled by the thought of Dharma and even that of nirvana, this is pollution which runs counter to the quest of Dharma. Dharma cannot be practiced, and if it is put into practice, this implies something, i.e. an object, to be practiced and is not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is beyond grasping and rejecting, and if you grasp or reject it, this is grasping or rejecting something else, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is beyond position, but if you give it a place, this is clinging to space, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is formless, but if you rely on form to conceive the Dharma, this is search for form, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is not an abode, but if you want to stay in it, this is dwelling in an objective Dharma, but not the quest of absolute Dharma. Dharma can be neither seen, nor heard, nor felt, nor known, but if you want to see, hear, feel and know it, this is the functioning of your discriminatory seeing, hearing, feeling and knowing, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is transcendently inactive, wu wei, but if you are set on worldly activities, this is a search for the worldly way of life, but not the quest of Dharma. Therefore, Sariputta, the quest of Dharma does not imply seeking anything whatsoever. 176. The theory of causation. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, the theory of causation has the following meanings. Conditioned arising. Arising from the secondary causes, in contrast with arising from the primal nature or Buddhatattva, Tanjok, everything arises from conditions and not being spontaneous and self-contained, has no separate and independent nature. Buddhism does not give importance to the idea of the root principle or the first cause as other systems of philosophy often do, nor does it discuss the idea of cosmology. Naturally, such a branch of philosophy as theology did not have grounds to develop in Buddhism. One should not expect any discussion of theology from a Buddhist philosopher. As for the problem of creation, Buddhism is ready to accept any theory that science may advance, for Buddhism does not recognize any conflict between religion and science. According to Buddhism, human beings and all living things are self-created or self-creating. The universe is not homocentric, it is a co-creation of all beings. Buddhism does not believe that all things came from one cause, but holds that everything is inevitably created out of more than 2 causes. The creations or becomings of the antecedent causes continue in time series, past, present and future, like a chain. This chain is divided into 12 divisions, and is called the 12-division cycle of causation and becomings. Since these divisions are interdependent, the process is called dependent production or chain of causation. The formula of this theory is as follows. From the existence of this, that becomes, from the happening of this, that happens. From the non-existence of this, that does not become, from the non-happening of this, that does not happen. Thus, the term causation indicates the following. A thing arises from or is produced through the agency of a condition or a secondary cause. A thing does not take form unless there is an appropriate condition. This truth applies to all existence and all phenomena in the universe. The Buddha intuitively perceived this so profoundly that even modern science cannot probe further. When we look carefully at things around us, we find that water, stone, and even human beings are produced each according to a certain pattern with its own individual character. Through what power or direction are the conditions generated that produce various things in perfect order from such an amorphous energy as sunyata? When we consider this regularity and order, we cannot help admitting that some rule exists. It is the rule that causes all things exist. This indeed is the law taught by the Buddha. Just consider that billions of years ago, the earth had no life, volcanoes poured forth torrents of lava, and vapor and gas filled the sky. However, when the earth cooled about 2 billion years ago, microscopic one-celled living creatures were produced. It goes without saying that they were produced through the working of the law. They were born when the energy of sunyata forming the foundation of lava, gas, and vapor came into contact with appropriate conditions or a secondary cause. It is the law that provided the conditions for the generation of life. Therefore, we realize that the law is not cold, a mere abstract rule, but is full of vivid power causing everything to exist and live. Conversely, everything has the power of desiring to exist and to live. During the first 2 billion years of the development of the earth, even lava, gas, and vapor possessed the urge to live. That is why one-celled living creatures were generated from them when the conditions were right. These infinitesimal creatures endured all kinds of trials, including extreme heat and cold, tremendous floods, and torrential rains, for about 2 billion years, and continued to live. Moreover, they gradually evolved into more sophisticated forms, culminating in man. This evolution was caused by the urge to live of these first microscopic creatures. Life had mind, through which it desired to live, from the time even before it existed on earth. Such a will exists in everything in the universe. This will exists in man today. From the scientific point of view, man is formed by a combination of elementary particles, and if we analyze this still more deeply, we see that man is an accumulation of energy. Therefore, the mind desiring to live must surely exist in man. We all know what dependent means and what origination or arising means. However, according to the Buddha, the theory of independent origination was very deep. Many people believe that the theory of independent origination is one of the most difficult subjects in Buddhism. As a matter of fact, on one occasion Ananda remarked that despite its apparent difficulty, the teaching of independent origination was actually quite simple, and the Buddha rebuked Ananda, saying that in fact the teaching of independent origination was very deep, not that simple. However, the theory of independent origination in Buddhism is very clear and easy to understand. The Buddha gave 2 examples to make it clear for the assembly. The Buddha has said the flame in an oil lamp burns dependent upon the oil and the wick. When the oil and the wick are present, the flame in an oil lamp burns. Besides, the wind factor is also important. If the wind blows strongly, the oil lamp cannot continue to burn. The second example on the sprout. The sprout is not only dependent on the seed, but also dependent on earth, water, air and sunlight. Therefore, there is no existing phenomenon that is not effective dependent origination. All these phenomena cannot arise without a cause in one or more conditions. All things in the phenomenal world are brought into being by the combination of various cause and conditions, 12 links of dependent origination. They are relative and without substantially or self-entity. The Buddha always expressed that his experience of enlightenment in one of 2 ways. Either in terms of having understood the 4 noble truths, or in terms of having understood interdependent origination. Zen practitioners who want to attain enlightenment must understand the meaning of these truths. According to the Buddha, a cause refers to the cause you have planted, from which you reap a corresponding result without any exception. If you plant a good cause, you will get a good result. And if you plant a bad cause, you will obtain a bad result. So if you plant a certain cause with other conditions assemble, a certain retribution or result is brought about without any exception. The Buddha taught, because of a concatenation of causal chains there is birth, there is disappearance. Cause and effect in Buddhism are not a matter of belief or disbelief. Even though you don't believe in cause and effect, they just operate the way they are supposed to operate. The cause is the seed, what contributes to its growth is the conditions. Planting a seed in the ground is a cause. Conditions are aiding factors which contribute to the growth, such as soil, water, sunlight, fertilizer, and the care of the gardener, etc. All things in the phenomenal world are brought into being by the combination of various causes and conditions, 12 links of dependent origination. They are relative and without substantiality or self-entity. According to the Majjhima Nikaya Sutra, the Buddha taught, depending on the oil and wick, does the light of the lamp burn. It is neither in the one, nor in the other, nor anything in itself. Phenomena are, likewise, nothing in themselves. So do we do not exist accidentally, but exist and live by means of this law. As soon as we realize this fact, we become aware of our firm foundation and set our minds at ease. Far from being capricious, this foundation rests on the law, with which nothing can compare firmness. This assurance is the source of the great peace of mind that is not agitated by anything. It is the law that imparts life of all of us. The law is not something cold, but is full of vigor and vivid with life. All things are unreal, they are deceptions. Nirvana is the only truth. According to Buddhism, whoever perceives the interdependent nature of reality sees the Dharma, and whoever sees the Dharma sees the Buddha. The principle of interdependent origination means that all conditioned things, phenomena, or events in the universe come into being only as a result of the interaction of various causes and conditions. Buddhism does not accept the argument that things can arise from nowhere, with no cause and conditions, nor does it accept another argument that things can arise on account of an almighty creator. According to Buddhism, all material objects are composed by parts to make the whole, and the whole depends upon the existence of part to exist. In other words, all things and events, everything, arise solely as a result of the mere coming together of the many factors which make them up. Therefore, there is nothing that has any independent or intrinsic identity of its own in this universe. However, this is not to say that things do not exist, things do exist, but they do not have an independent or autonomous reality. When we understand the principle of interdependent origination or the fundamental insight into the nature of reality, we will realize that everything we perceive and experience arises as a result of the interaction and coming together of causes and conditions. In other words, when we thoroughly understand the principle of interdependent origination, we also understand the law of cause and effect. Dependent arising is an essential corollary to the second and third of the Four Noble Truths, and is not, as some are inclined to think, a later addition to the teaching of the Buddha. This dependent arising, this doctrine of conditionality, is often explained in severely practical terms, but it is not a mere pragmatical teaching, though it may appear to be so, owing to the shortness of the explanations. Those conversant with the Buddhist canon know that in the doctrine of dependent arising is found that which brings out the basic principles of knowledge and wisdom in the Dhamma. In this teaching of the conditionality of everything in the world can be realized the essence of the Buddha's outlook on life. This conditionality goes on uninterrupted and uncontrolled by self-agency or external agency of any sort. The doctrine of conditionality cannot be labeled as determinism, because in this teaching both the physical environment and the moral causation, psychological causation, of the individual function together. The physical world influences man's mind, and mind, on the other hand, influences the physical world, obviously in a higher degree, for as the Buddha taught in the Samyutta Nikaya, the world is led by the mind. If we fail to understand the real significance and application to life of the dependent arising, we mistake it for a mechanical law of causality or even a simple simultaneous arising, a first beginning of all things, animate and inanimate. As there is no origination out of nothing in Buddhist thought, dependent arising shows the impossibility of a first cause. The first beginning of existence, of the live stream of living beings is inconceivable, and as the Buddha says in the Samyutta Nikaya, notions and speculations concerning the world may lead to mental derangement. O monks! This wheel of existence, this cycle of continuity is without a visible end, and the first beginning of beings wandering and hurrying round, wrapped in ignorance and fettered by craving, is not to be perceived. In fact, it is impossible to conceive of a first beginning. None can trace the ultimate origin of anything, not even of a grain of sand, let alone of human beings. It is useless and meaningless to seek a beginning in a beginningless past. Life is not an identity, it is a becoming. It is a flux of physiological and psychological changes. 20 centuries ago, the Buddha said, "Humanity and the world are the cause and conditions to be linked and to become." His words have denied the presence of a creator or God. Hey, give us a scientific and objective outlook of the present world, related to the law of conditioning. It means that everything is dependent upon conditions to come into being or survive. In other words, there is nothing that can be self-creating and self-existing, independent from others. All sentient beings, objects, elements, etc., in this world are determined by the law of conditioning, under the form of formation, stabilization, deterioration, and annihilation. Man is a small cosmos. He comes into being not by himself, but by the activation of the law of transformation. The meaning of the 12 conditions of cause and effect are extremely deep and profound. They are important doors for cultivators to step into the realm of enlightenment, liberation from the cycle of birth, death, bondage, sufferings, and afflictions from the 3 worlds and 6 paths, and to attain pratika Buddhahood. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, the theory of causation by Dharmadhatu is the climax of all the causation theories. It is actually the conclusion of the theory of causation origination, as it is the universal causation, and is already within the theory of universal immanence, panpsychism, cosmotism, or whatever it may be called. The causation theory was explained first by action influence, but as action originates in ideation, we had, secondly, the theory of causation by ideation store. Since the ideation store is the repository of seed energy must originate from something else, we had, thirdly, the causation theory explained by the expression matrix of the thus come, Tathagata Garba, or thusness. This curious term means that which conceals the Buddha. Because of concealment it has an impure side, but because of Buddhahood it has a pure side as well. It is a synonym of thusness, tattva or tathata, not tattva equals thisness or thatness, which has in its broadest sense both pure and impure nature. Through the energy of pure and impure causes, it manifests the specific character of becoming as birth and death, or as good and evil. Thusness pervades all beings, or better, all beings are in the state of thusness. Here, as the fourth stage, the causation theory by Dharmadhatu, universe, is set forth. It is the causation by all beings themselves and is the creation of the universe itself, or we can call it the causation by the common action influence of all beings. Intensively considered, the universe will be a manifestation of thusness or the matrix of Tathagata, thus come. But extensively considered, it is the causation of the universe by the universe itself and nothing more. Buddhism does not agree with the existence of a so-called self nor a so-called creator. But this doesn't mean that all beings and things do not exist. They do not exist with a substratum or a permanent essence in them, as people often think, but according to Buddhism, beings and things do exist as causal relatives or combinations. All becomings, either personal or universal, originate from the principle of causation and exist in causal combinations. The center of causation is one's own action, and the action will leave it latent energy which decides the ensuing existence. Accordingly, our past forms our present, and the present forms the future. In this world, we are continuously creating and changing ourselves as a whole. According to the Madhyamaka philosophy, the doctrine of causal law, pratityasamutpada, is exceedingly important in Buddhism. It is the causal law both of the universe and the lives of individuals. It is important from 2 points of view. Firstly, it gives a very clear idea of the impermanent and conditioned nature of all phenomena. Secondly, it shows how birth, old age, death and all the miseries of phenomenal existence arise in dependence upon conditions, and how all the miseries cease in the absence of these conditions. The rise and subsidence of the elements of existence is not the correct interpretation of the causal law. According to the Madhyamaka philosophy, the causal law, pratityasamutpada, does not mean the principle of temporal sequence, but the principle of essential dependence of things on each other. In one word, it is the principle of relativity. Relativity is the most important discovery of modern science. What science has discovered today, the Buddha had discovered more than 2,500 years before. In interpreting the causal law as essential dependence of things on each other or relativity of things, the Madhyamaka means to controvert another doctrine of the Hinayanists. The Hinayanists had analyzed all phenomena into elements, dharmas, and believed that these elements had a separate reality of their own. The Madhyamaka says that the very doctrine of the causal law declares that all the dharmas are relative, they have no separate reality of their own. Without a separate reality is synonymous with devoid of real, sunyata, or independent existence. Phenomena are devoid of independent reality. The most importance of the causal law lies in its teaching that all phenomenal existence, all entities in the world are conditioned, are devoid of real, sunya, independent existence, svabhava. There is no real, dependent existence of entities. All the concrete content belongs to the interplay of countless conditions. Nagarjuna sums up his teaching about the causal law in the following words. Since there is no elements of existence, dharma, which comes into manifestation without conditions, therefore there is no dharma which is not sunya or devoid of real independent existence. 177. Interbeing endlessly interwoven. Interbeing endlessly interwoven, name of a kind of meditation on the manifestation of all phenomena is interdependent. This meditation can help free us from the concept of unity and diversity or one and all. This meditation can dissolve the concept of me, because the concept of self is built on the opposition of unity and diversity. When we think of a speck of dust, a flower, or a human being, our thinking cannot break loose from the idea of unity, of one, of calculation. We see a line between one and many, between one and not one. In daily life we need this just as a train needs a track. But if we truly realize the interdependent nature of the dust, the flower, and the human being, we see that unity cannot exist without diversity. Unity and diversity interpenetrate each other freely. Unity is diversity. This is the principle of interbeing and interpenetration of the Avatamsaka Sutra. Interbeing means this is that is this. Interpenetration means this is in that, and that is in this. When we meditate deeply on interbeing and interpenetration, we see that the idea of one and many is only a mental construct which we use to contain reality, much as we use a bucket to hold water. Once we have escaped the confinement of this construct, we are like a train breaking free of its rails to fly freely in space. Just as when we realize that we are standing on a spherical planet which is rotating around its axis and around the sun, our concepts of above and below disintegrate, so when we realize the interdependent nature of all things, we are freed from the idea of one and many. The image of Indra's jeweled net is used in the Avatamsaka Sutra to illustrate the infinite variety of interactions and intersections of all things. The net is woven of an infinite variety of brilliant gems, each with countless facets. Each gem reflects in itself every other gem. In this vision, each gem contains all the other gems. To envision the interwoven nature of relationships, which illustrate the character of interbeing and interpenetration, we can picture a sphere which is compassed of all the points on its surface, and all the points within its volume. There are extremely many points, yet without each of them the sphere does not exist. Now let us imagine connecting each point with all the other points. First we connect point A to each of the other points. Then we connect point B with each of the others, including A, and so on until all the points are connected. As you can see, we have woven the points are connected. As you can see, we have woven an extremely dense net intertwining all the points. The principle of the interbeing and interpenetration in the Avatamsaka Sutra refuses to accept the concept of inner-outer, big-small, one-many is real. It also refuses the concept of space as an absolute reality. With respect to time, the conceptual distinction between past, present, and future is also destroyed. The Avatamsaka Sutra says that past and future can be put into the present, present and past into future, present and future into past, and finally all eternity into unksana. The shortest possible moment. To summarize, time, like space, is stamped with the seal of interdependence, and one instant contains 3 times: past, present and future. Not only does a speck of dust contain in itself infinite space, it also contains endless time. In one ksana we find both infinite time and endless space. According to the Avatamsaka Sutra, in the interdependence of all things or interbeing, cause and effect are no longer perceived as linear, but as a net, not a two-dimensional one, but a system of countless nets interwoven in all directions in multi-dimensional space. Not only do the organs contain in themselves the existence of all the other organs, but each cell contains in itself all the other cells. One is present in all and all are present in each one. This is expressed clearly in the Avatamsaka Sutra as one is all is one. When we fully grasp this, we are freed from the pitfall of thinking of one and many, a habit that has held us trapped for so long. When we say, one cell contains in itself all the other cells, do not misunderstand that there is some way that one cell's capacity can be stretched to fit all the others inside of it. We mean that the presence of one call implies the presence of all the others, since they cannot exist independently, separate of the others. 178. Dharmadhatu. The realm of principle, Dharmadhatu, has a double meaning. The first is the actual universe, and the second is the indeterminate world or nirvana. This is identical with the thusness of the Buddha. Nirvana or flamelessness means, on the one hand, the death of a human body and, on the other hand, the total extinction of life conditions, negatively, or the perfect freedom of will and action, positively. In the phenomenal world, Dharmadhatu, there are 3 worlds of desire, form and mind. All created things or beings, both noble and ignoble, both cause and effect, are within the Dharmadhatu. The idea in this text is practically identical with the diagram given above. The term Dharmadhatu is sometimes used as a synonym of the ultimate truth. Therefore, the translation "the element of the element" is quite fitting. But at other times it means the universe, the realm of all elements. The double meaning, the universe and the universal principle, must always be borne in mind whenever we use the term. Either meaning will serve as the name of the causation theory. The Dharmadhatu is the environmental cause of all phenomena. Everything is being dependent on everything else, therefore one is in all and all is in one. According to the principle of universal causation, no one being will exist by itself and for itself, but the whole world will move and act in unison, as if the whole were under general organization. Such an idea world is called the world one and true or the lotus door. The principle of universal causation is based upon the universal causation of the realm of principle, Dharmadhatu, which we may regard as the self-creation of the universe itself. One should not forget that it is nothing but a causation bit the common action influence of all brings, and that the principle is also based on the theory of selflessness. In the Buddhist terminology, the principle of totality is called the Avatamsaka, wreath. According to the Lankavatara Sutra and the Huayan Sutra, the universe is mind only. A particular plane of existence, as in the 10 Dharma realms. The Dharma realms pervade empty space to the bounds of the universe, but in general, there are 4 sagely Dharma realms and 6 ordinary Dharma realms. These 10 Dharma realms do not go beyond the current thought you are thinking. Among these, there is an enlightened world, that is, the totality of infinity of the realm of the Buddha. The Dharma realm is just the one mind. The Buddhas certify to this and accomplish their Dharma bodies inexhaustible, level, and equal is the Dharma realm, in which the bodies of all thus come ones pervade. Thus, the Dharmadhatu Buddha, the universal Buddha, or the Buddha of a Buddha realm, i.e. the Dharmakaya. In the Tantric school, Dharmadhatu includes Garbhadhatu, material, and Vajradhatu, indestructible. The womb treasury, the universal source. The womb in which a child is conceived. Its body, mind, etc. It is container and content, it covers and nourishes, and is the source of all supply from which all things are produced. Garbhadhatu is the constitution and development of this spiritual world. The Garbhakosa conceives the world as a stage on which Vairakana Buddha, residing in the inmost heart of every being, develops his inherent possibilities. It represents the fundamental nature, both material elements and pure bodhi, or wisdom in essence or purity. The Garbhadhatu is fundamental wisdom. Garbhadhatu is the original intellect, or the static intellectuality, in contrast with intellection, the initial or dynamic intellectuality represented in the Vajradhatu. The Garbhadhatu is the cause and Vajradhatu is the effect. Though as both are unity, the reverse may be the rule, the effect being also the cause. The Garbhadhatu is likened to enrich others, as Vajradhatu is to enriching self. Vajragarbha depicts the Buddha in his own manifestations. In Vajragarbha, the pictures illustrating the scheme and process of these developments are called mandala. Acquired wisdom or knowledge, the Vajradhatu. The Garbhadhatu represents the 8 parts of the human heart as the 8-petal lotus mandala. Dharmadhatu is a name for things in general, nominal or phenomenal, for physical universe, or any portion or phase of it. Dharmadhatu is the unifying underlying spiritual reality regarded as the ground or cause of all things, the absolute from which all proceeds. It is one of the 18 datas. According to the Madhyamaka philosophy, the word Dharmadhatu is also called Tathata or reality, or nirvana. Here the word dhatu means the inmost nature, the ultimate essence. Dharmadhatu or Tathata is both transcendent and immanent. It is transcendent as ultimate reality, but it is present in everyone as his inmost ground and essence. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, Dharmadhatu, in its double meaning as realm of principle and element of all elements, is a synonym with matrix of the thus come, Tathagata Garbha, and also with the universe or the actual world, i.e., the realm of all elements. The theory of causation by Dharmadhatu is the climax of all the causation theories. It is actually the conclusion of the theory of causation origination, as it is the universal causation, and is already within the theory of universal immanence, pansophism, cosmothism, or whatever it may be called. The causation theory was explained first by action influence, but as action originates in ideation, we had, secondly, the theory of causation by ideation store. Since the ideation store is the repository of seed energy must originate from something else, we had, thirdly, the causation theory explained by the expression matrix of the thus come, Tathagata Garbha, or thusness. This curious term means that which conceals the Buddha. Because of concealment it has an impure side, but because of Buddhahood it has a pure side as well. It is a synonym of thusness, tathava or tathata, not tattva equals thisness or thatness, which has in its broadest sense both pure and impure nature. Through the energy of pure and impure causes, it manifests the specific character of becoming as birth and death, or as good and evil. Thusness pervades all beings, or better, all beings are in the state of thusness. Here, as the 4th stage, the causation theory by Dharmadhatu, universe, is set forth. It is the causation by all beings themselves and is the creation of the universe itself, or we can call it the causation by the common action influence of all beings. Intensively consider the universe will be a manifestation of thusness or the matrix of Tathagata, thus come. But extensively considered it is the causation of the universe by the universe itself and nothing more. 179. 4 Dharma realms. Buddhism holds that nothing was created singly or individually. All things in the universe, matter or mind, arose simultaneously, all things in its depending upon one another, the influence of each mutually permeating and thereby making a universe symphony of harmonious totality. If one item were lacking, the universe would not be complete. Without the rest, one item cannot be. When the whole cosmos arrives at a harmony of perfection, it is called the universe one and true or the lotus door. In this ideal universe all beings will be in perfect harmony, each finding no obstruction in the existence and activity of another. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, although the idea of the interdependence and simultaneous rise of all things is called the theory of universe causation, the nature of the rise being universal, it is rather a philosophy of the totality of all existence than a philosophy of origination. According to this theory of the Huayan school, there are 4 Dharma realms. First, the Dharma realm of phenomena. The real, or the world of actual life, the factual world. The idea of looking at the Dharma dhatu as a world of individual objects, in which case the term dhatu means something separated. This is the world of reality, the factual practical world, or the phenomenal realm, phenomenal world. The Dharma realm of phenomena, or the realm of events, specifics. It represents the realistic doctrine of Hinayana. Second, the Dharma realm of Namina. The ideal, or the world of law or principle. The idea of looking at the Dharma dhatu as a manifestation of one spirit, ekasiddha, or one elementary substance, ekadhatu. This is the nominal realm, or nominal world. The Dharma realm of Namina, or the realm of principles. This is the world of principle or the oracle world. It is represented by the Samlun and Dharmalaksana schools, which teach that principle is separate from facts. Third, the Dharma realm of non-obstructions of Namina and phenomena. The idea realized, or the world in which the principle is applied in actual life, or the fact and the principle harmonized. The idea of looking at the Dharma dhatu as a world where all its particular existences, vastu, are identifiable with one underlying spirit. This Dharma dhatu is the interdependence of phenomenal and nominal realm. The world in which phenomena are identical with Namina, the Dharma realm of non-obstructions of Namina and phenomena, principles and specifics. The realm of principles against events perfectly fused in unimpeded freedom. The awakening of faith in the Thien Phuc school believe the identity of fact and principle. That means the world of principle and reality united, or the ideal world realized. Fourth, the Dharma realm of non-obstruction of phenomena and phenomena. The idea of looking at the Dharma dhatu as a world where each one of its particular objects is identifiable with every other particular object, with whatever lines of separation there may be between them all removed. This is the world of all realities or practical facts interwoven or identified in perfect harmony. It is to say phenomena are also interdependent. The world in which phenomena interpenetrate one another without hindrances. The Dharma realm of non-obstruction of phenomena and phenomena. The realm of events against events, specifics and specifics, perfectly fused in unimpeded freedom. It represents by the Huayan school, which teaches that all distinct facts or realities will, and ought to, form a harmonious whole by mutual penetration and mutual identification, so as to realize the ideal world of one true. The real harmonized, or the world in which actuality attains harmony in itself. In the actual world, individualism is apt to predominate, and competition, conflict, dispute and struggle too often will disturb the harmony. To regard conflict as natural is the way of usual philosophies. Buddhism sets up a world in which actual life attains an ideal harmony. According to Prof. Junjiro Takakusu in the Essentials of Buddhist Philosophy, it should not be difficult to make practice adapted to theory, but such being the evil of men, some make too much of theory, while others make too much of practice. So a rational solution becomes necessary. Moreover, in the world of realities, fact, practice often goes against practice, fact against fact, business against business, individual against individual, class against class, nation against nation. Such is the feature of the world of individualism, and thus the whole world goes to pieces. Mere collectivism or solidarity will not prevent the evil of life. To harmonize such a state of being and to make all things go smoothly, the world of mutual reliance or interdependence ought to be created. Such an ideal world is called the fact and fact world perfectly harmonized. 180. The Dharma realm of Buddhas. The universal Buddha, or the Dharma realm of Buddhas, i.e. the Dharmakaya. The Avatamsaka Sutra teaches. The myriad dharmas are made from a mind alone. The Buddha is created by our mind. If our mind cultivates the Buddha Dharma, then we will accomplish the Buddha way. If our mind cultivates the Bodhisattva path, eventually we will become a Bodhisattva. If our mind wishes to fall into the hells, we will surely head in the direction of the hells. That is why it is said, the 10 Dharma realms are not beyond this mind. The Dharma realm of Buddhas is not small because it comprises the 3,000 great Chilai cosmos, but at the same time, the Dharma realm of Buddhas is not great either. Because in that Dharma realm, there are no arrogance, no pride, and no ego. The Buddha's Dharma body reaches to the ends of space and pervades throughout the Dharma realm. It is nowhere present and yet nowhere absent. If we say it goes, then to where does it go? If we say it comes, then to where does it come? As a matter of fact, the Buddha's Dharma body is universally pervasive. It is not only in this world, but in worlds as many as tiny specks of dust. Limitlessly and boundlessly many worlds are all the Buddha's Dharma body. That is why it is said to be in worlds as many as motes of dust. The light emitted by the Buddhas in this Dharma realm shines on the Buddhas in other Dharma realms, and the light of the Buddhas in those other Dharma realms also shines on this Dharma realm. Buddhas in the universe still emit lights to shine one another, and these lights mutually unite. Why not us, ordinary people? Buddhist disciples should unite our lights. There should not be any clashes between ordinary people. This shining means your light shines on me, and my light shines on you. Our light should shine on one another throughout our way of cultivation to eliminate our ignorance. 181. Truth of the cessation of suffering. The truth of the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, the way of cure, the truth of the right way, the way of such extinction in practicing the Eightfold Noble Truths. Buddha taught, whoever accepts the 4 dogmas and practices the Eightfold Noble Path will put an end to births and deaths. In the Dharmapada Sutra, the Buddha taught, in the untruth the foolish see the truth, while the truth is seen as the untruth. Those who harbor such wrong thoughts never realize the truth. Dharmapada 11. What is truth regarded as truth, what is untruth regarded as untruth. Those who harbor such right thoughts realize the truth. Dharmapada 12. There are 2 truths, conventional or relative truth, and ultimate truth. By coming to know our everyday world of lived experience, we realize what is known as the world of conventional reality, where the causal principle operates. This is what we call conventional truth, Samvahara Satya. If we accept the reality of this world as conventional, then we can accept the empty nature of this world, which, according to Buddhism, is the ultimate truth, Paramitha Satya. The true principle, or the principle of truth, or the absolute apart from phenomena. The truth is the destructive cause of pain. The truth is the asseveration or categories of reality. Truth and reality, opposite of ordinary or worldly truth, dini, or ordinary categories, they are those of the sage, or man of insight, in contrast with those of the common man, who knows only appearance and not reality. In Buddhism, there are 4 truths, or 4 noble truths, or 4 philosophies. A fundamental doctrine of Buddhism which clarifies the cause of suffering and the way to emancipation. Sakyamuni Buddha is said to have expounded the 4 noble truths in the Deer Park in Sarnath during his first sermon after attaining Buddhahood. The Buddha organized these ideas into the fourfold truth as follows. Life consists entirely of suffering. Suffering has causes. The causes of suffering can be extinguished, and there exists a way to extinguish the cause. Highest truth is one of the 4 types of Siddhanta, the highest Siddhanta or truth, the highest universal gift of Buddha, his teaching which awakens the highest capacity in all beings to attain salvation. This is also one of the 2 truths, the highest truth, the supreme truth or reality, the ultimate meaning, the paramount truth in contrast with the seeming, also called veritable truth, sage truth, surpassing truth, nirvana, bhutatthata, madhya, sunyata, etc. The other siddhantas include mundane or ordinary modes of expression, individual treatment, adapting his teaching to the capacity of his hearers, and diagnostic treatment of their moral diseases. Besides, perfect true nature or absolute reality as the pure ideation can purify the tainted portion of the ideation store, alaya vijnana, and further develop its power of understanding. The world of imagination and the world of interdependence will be brought to the real truth, parinispana. There is also a so-called truth as reliance which bodhisattvas take all truths as a reliance, as they ultimately end in emancipation. This is one of the 10 kinds of reliance of great enlightening beings. According to the Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 38, Detachment from the World, the great enlightening being universally good, told universal wisdom that offsprings of Buddha, great enlightening beings, have 10 kinds of reliance which help them be able to obtain abodes of the unexcelled great knowledge of Buddhas. According to the Kasapatiya Sutra, the Buddha advised the Kalamas on how to verify the truth as follows. Do not accept anything merely on the basis of purported authority, nor to accept anything simply because it is written in sacred books, nor to accept anything on the basis of common opinion. nor because it seems reasonable, nor yet again because of reverence for a teacher. Do not accept even my teachings without verification of its truth through your personal experience. I recommend all of you to test whatever you hear in the light of your own experience. Only when you yourselves know that such and such things are harmful, then you should abandon them. Contrarily, when you yourselves see that certain things are beneficial and peaceful, then you should seek to cultivate them. There are still relative truth and absolute truth. According to relative truth, all things exist, but in absolute truth, nothing is. In absolute truth, one sees that all things are devoid of self-nature. However, in relative truth, a perception where there is no self-nature. The relative truth, or the truth of the unreal, which is subject to change, manifests stillness, but is always illuminating, which means that it is immanent in everything. Pure Land thinkers accepted the legitimacy of conventional truth as an expression of ultimate truth, and as a vehicle to reach ultimate truth. This method of basing on form helps cultivators reach the Buddhahood, which is formless. Absolute truth or supreme truth, or ultimate truth, which means the final nature of reality, which is unconditioned, as Samskara, and which neither is produced nor ceases. It is equated with emptiness, sunyata, and truth body, dharmakaya, and is contrasted with conventional truths, samvati-satya, which are produced and ceased by causes and conditions and impermanence, anitya. The absolute truth, transcending dichotomies, as taught by the Buddhas. The absolute truth, or the truth of the void, manifests illumination but is always still, and this is absolutely inexplicable. Ultimate truth means the correct dogma or averment of the enlightened. According to the Madhyamaka Sastra, the Buddhas in the past proclaimed their teachings to the people by means of the twofold truth, in order to lead people to a right way. The ultimate truth is the realization that worldly things are non-existent like an illusion or an echo. However, transcendental truth cannot be attained without resorting to conventional truth. Conventional truth is only a mean, while transcendental truth is the end. It was by the higher truth that the Buddha preached that all elements are of universal relativity or void, sarva sunyata. For those who are attached to realism, the doctrine of non-existence is proclaimed in the way of the higher truth, in order to teach them the nameless and characterless state. According to the Madhyamaka Sastra, the Buddhas in the past proclaimed their teachings to the people by means of the twofold truth, in order to lead people to a right way. Though we may speak of existence, it is temporary and not fixed. Even non-existence or void is temporary and not fixed. So there is neither a real existence nor a real void. Being or non-being is only an outcome of causal relation, and, therefore, unreal. Thus the ideal of the two extremes of being and non-being is removed. Therefore, when we deal with the worldly truth, the phenomenal world can be assumed without disturbing the nominal state. Likewise, when we deal with the higher truth, the nominal state can be attained without stirring the world of mere name. Non-existence is at the same time existence, and existence in turn is non-existence. Form or matter is the same time the void, and the void is at the same time form or matter. Relative or conventional truth of the mundane world subject to delusion, common or ordinary statement, as if phenomena were real. According to the Madhyamaka Sastra, the Buddhas in the past proclaimed their teachings to the people by means of the twofold truth, in order to lead people to a right way. Conventional truth refers to ignorance or delusion which envelops reality and gives a false impression. It was by the worldly truth that the Buddha preached that all elements have come into being through causation. For those who are attached to nihilism, the theory of existence is taught in the way of the worldly truth. According to the Madhyamaka philosophy, Nagarjuna says phenomena have reality of a sort. They are samvati satya, they are the appearance of reality. Appearance points to that which appears. Samvati is appearance, cover or veil, which covers the absolute reality. In short, that which covers all round is samvati. Samvati is primal ignorance, ajnana, which covers the real nature of all things. Samvati or pragmatic reality is the means, upaya, for reaching absolute reality, paramartha. Without a recourse to pragmatic reality, the absolute truth cannot be taught. Without knowing the absolute truth, nirvana cannot be attained. Thus, in the Madhyamaka Karika, Nagarjuna confirmed. From the relative standpoint, the theory of dependent origination, pratitya samutpada, explains worldly phenomena, but from the absolute standpoint, it means non-origination at all times, and is equated with nirvana or sunyata. According to Prof. Janjira, things are only mean or middle. The same will be the case when we argue by means of the middle truth. The middle does not mean that it is between the non-existence and temporary existence. In fact, it is over and above the two, nor it is identical with the two, because the true state means that the middle is the very state of being void and temporary. If you suppose noumenon to be such an abiding substance, you will be misled altogether. Therefore, the Thien Thai school sets forth the threefold truth. According to this school, the three truths are 3 in 1, 1 in 3. The principle is one, but the method of explanation is threefold. Each one of the three has the value of all. The truth of void means all things have no reality, and, therefore, are void. Therefore, when our argument is based on the void, we deny the existence of both the temporary and the middle, since we consider the void as transcending all. Thus, the three will all be void. And, when one is void, all will be void. When one is void, all will be void. When one is temporary, all is temporary. When one is middle, all will be middle. They are also called the identical void, identical temporary, and identical middle. It is also said to be the perfectly harmonious triple truth or the absolute triple truth. We should not consider the three truths as separate because the three penetrate one another and are found perfectly harmonized and united together. A thing is void but is also temporarily existent. It is temporary because it is void, and the fact that everything is void and at the same time temporary is the middle truth. The truth of temporariness means although things are present at the moment, they have temporary existence. The same will be the case when we argue by means of the temporary truth. The truth of mean is only mean or middle. The same will be the case when we argue by means of the middle truth. The middle does not mean that it is between the non-existence and temporary existence. In fact, it is over and above the two, nor it is identical with the two, because the true state means that the middle is the very state of being void and temporary. 182. 10 Major Precepts. In the Brahmanet Sutra, the Buddha said to his disciples, there are 10 major bodhisattva precepts. If one receives the precepts but fails to keep, observe, practice them, he is not a bodhisattva, nor he is a seed of Buddhahood. I, too, recite these precepts. All bodhisattvas have studied them in the past, will study in the future, and are studying them now. I have explained the main characteristics of the bodhisattva precepts. You should study and observe them with all your heart. First major precept on killing. A disciple of the Buddha shall not himself kill, encourage others to kill by expedient means, praise killing, rejoice at witnessing killing, or kill through incantation or deviant mantras. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of killing, and shall not intentionally kill any living creature. As a Buddha's disciple, he ought to nurture a mind of compassion and filial piety, always devising expedient means to rescue and protect all beings. If instead, he fails to restrain himself and kills sentient beings without mercy, he commits a parajika offense. Second major precept on stealing. A disciple of the Buddha must not himself steal or encourage others to steal by expedient means, steal by means of incantation or deviant mantras. He should not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of stealing. No. Valuables or possessions, even those belonging to ghosts and spirits or thieves and robbers, be they as small as a needle or a blade of grass, may be stolen. As a Buddha's disciples, he ought to have a mind of mercy, compassion, and filial piety, always helping other people to earn merits and achieve happiness. If instead, he steals the possessions of others, he commits a parajika offense. Third major precept on sexual misconduct, not lust. A disciple of the Buddha must not engage in licentious acts or encourage others to do so. He, a monk, should not have sexual relations with any female, be she a human, animal, deity or spirit, nor create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of such misconduct. Indeed, he must not engage in improper sexual misconduct with anyone. A Buddha's disciple ought to have a mind of filial piety, rescuing all sentient beings, and instructing them in the Dharma of purity and chastity. Sexual misconduct is also one of the 5 basic precepts for householders. If instead, he lacks compassion and encourages others to engage in sexual relations promiscuously, including with animals and even their mothers, daughters, sisters, or other close relatives, he commits a parajika offense. Fourth major precept on lying and false speech. A disciple of the Buddha must not himself use false words in speech, or encourage others to lie by expedient means. He should not involve himself in the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of lying, saying that he has seen what he has not seen or vice versa, or lying implicitly through physical or mental means. As a Buddha's disciple, he ought to maintain right speech and right views always, and lead all others to maintain them as well. If instead, he causes wrong speech, wrong views or evil karma in others, he commits a parajika offense. Fifth major precept on drinking or selling alcohol beverages. A disciple of the Buddha must not drink or trade in alcohol beverages or encourage others to do so. He should not create the causes, conditions, methods or karma of drinking or selling any intoxicant whatsoever, for intoxicants are the causes and conditions of all kinds of offenses. As a Buddha's disciple, he ought to help all sentient beings achieve clear wisdom. If instead, he causes them to have upside-down, topsy-turvy thinking, he commits a parajika offense. Sixth major precept on broadcasting the faults of the assembly, not to discuss the faults of other Buddhists. A disciple of the Buddha must not himself broadcast the misdeeds or infractions of bodhisattva clerics or bodhisattva laypersons, or of ordinary monks and nuns, nor encourage others to do so. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of discussing the offenses of the assembly. As a Buddha's disciple, whenever he hears evil persons, externalists or followers of the two vehicles speak of practices contrary to the Dharma or contrary to the precepts within the Buddhist community, he should instruct them with a compassionate mind and lead them to develop wholesome faith in the Mahayana. If instead, he discusses the faults and misdeeds that occur within the assembly, he commits a parajika offense. Seventh major precept on praising oneself and disparaging others, not to praise oneself and disparage others. A disciple of the Buddha shall not praise himself and speak ill of others, or encourage others to do so. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of praising himself and disparaging others. As a disciple of the Buddha, he should be willing to stand in for all sentient beings and endure humiliation and slander, accepting blame, and letting sentient beings have all the glory. He should never display his own virtues and conceal the good points of others, thus causing them suffer slander. He commits a parajika offense. Eighth major precept on stinginess and abuse of others. A disciple of the Buddha must not be stingy or encourage others to be stingy. He should not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of stinginess. As a bodhisattva, whenever a destitute person comes for help, he should try his best to help, not to refuse. Besides, he must try to help others understand and practice Dharma. If instead, out of anger and resentment, he denies all assistance, refusing to help even a penny, a needle, a blade of grass, even a single sentence or verse or a phrase of Dharma, but instead scolds and abuses that person, he commits a parajika offense. Ninth major precept on anger and resentment, not to get angry. A disciple of the Buddha shall not harbor anger or encourage others to be angry. He should not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of anger. In the contrary, as a disciple of the Buddha, he ought to be compassionate and filial, helping all sentient beings, or even transformation beings, deities and spirits, be happy at all times. If instead, he insults and abuses sentient beings, or even transformation beings such as deities and spirits, with harsh words, hitting them with his fists or feet, or attacking them with a knife or club, or harbors grudges, even when the victim confesses his mistakes, and humbly seeks forgiveness in a soft conciliatory voice, the disciple commits a parajika offense. 10th major precept on slandering the triple jewel, not to insult the three treasures. A Buddha's disciple shall not himself speak ill of the triple jewel or encourage others to do so. He must not create the causes, conditions, methods, or karma of slandering. As a devoted Buddhist, when hearing a single word of slander against the triple jewel from externalists or evil beings, he experiences a pain similar to that of hundreds of thousands of spears piercing his heart. How then could he possibly slander the triple jewel himself? As a disciple of the Buddha, we are not only always revere the triple jewel ourselves, but we also help others understand and revere the triple jewel. On the contrary, if a disciple lacks faith and filial piety towards the triple jewel, and even assists evil persons or those of wrong views to slander the triple jewel, he commits a parajika offense. This is the end of this video. If you're enjoying and benefit from this video and want to see more awesome content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button below. It's the best way to stay updated with all of our latest videos. And if you found this video beneficial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Your support means the world to us, and it helps our channel grow. Thank you for being part of our incredible community. Together, we can make this channel even more fantastic. Stay tuned for more beneficial content coming your way. Thank you.